If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
As ready as we're going to be.
That's right.
Welcome into the Escape Pod, everybody. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity.
And we're so happy to have you with us today.
There's more people with us, too.
In spirit?
In spirit.
Or listeners?
Listeners is what I mean.
I know.
Like the upswing. It's been fun to kind of watch it.
Yeah, we had a couple
to grow again. So, yeah.
Good episodes in a row that we had lots of listeners for. And super important topics. So just glad to get the word out, help people understand, the digital world and the dangers that not only they face, but especially their kiddos face. So if you've missed it, go back and listen to that episode with Ms. Holly Strand, who is really a rock star in our community. But now people from far and wide can hear her amazing knowledge and insights, and I just appreciate her and glad somebody's willing to do that job.
I was just going to say that. I
could
not do that work. But
no.
I'm so glad there's someone that's that fierce and vigilant and can compartmentalize, like how she was saying how this is evidence, this is evidence, this is evidence.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could get myself there. So.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say.
Positive you couldn't.
It's fair.
I'm pretty sure I couldn't.
Yeah, it does take a special person for sure.
Yeah.
What are you escaping today?
Well, I mean, have you looked outside?
I know.
From gorgeous 60s to this slushy crap. So that's part of it. And then we're just, like we say POTUS, we're going to start saying MIL. My mother-in-law.
Oh.
Just more.
It's a lot.
Nothing to see here, folks. I don't have memory issues stuff. So,
shoot.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's 50 first dates.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we experienced that.
And then this chair, because when I sat down in the studio today, it was like sitting on a block of ice.
Yeah. Our studio was cold, our little pod. Yeah.
It's the cold pod today.
It's the cold pod today. And we do have a space heater, but it's really loud.
It's loud, yeah.
So we turn it off. Well, I think I narrowly escaped passing out after a meeting today.
What?
Yeah. So I had an exceptionally busy day yesterday,
yes,
I did not eat a lot. And then this morning, I slept hard, though. And so I woke up, and it was one of those, like, when you feel your
sleep
age.
hangovers,
where it's like, oh, I slept really well. So my neck didn't move much for 8 hours, probably. I mean, I think I really was close to 8 hours. Yeah. And so I had a headache, and I thought, well, eating will help. But I was like, we were rushing out the door. And I had a meeting this morning, and I thought, I'll be able to grab something before the meeting.
Uh-oh.
Well, I didn't. And I didn't take medicine for the headache because I didn't have anything in my stomach, and I didn't want my stomach to get upset. And I was fine for 9/10 of the meeting, and we were kind of wrapping it up. And I went to stand up at our coffee shop, and she would never have known, but I just had this moment where I was like, oh,
going down.
Mm-hmm.
Going down.
So I was okay. But like the moment that my guest walked out the door, I looked at Natasha, our coffee shop manager, and I was like, I need food. I need food now.
Man.
It just was one of those, I'm like, I know that's
no
all
more
it is.
Putting it off, Julie. Listen to your body.
Yeah. I know exactly what it is. The headache's worse, all of these things. And she was like, are you going to be okay? Like, I had to sit down and eat over there.
Yeah.
And half hour, 45 minutes later, I was fine.
Good.
But it was just one of those where I was like, when you're like your internal
You
talk.
have neglected yourself for too long. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, just don't pass out in front of somebody. Just don't pass out in front of somebody. And yeah, and I didn't. It was all good.
That'd be the best place to pass out in front of somebody, is in front of somebody, so that you're not like.
Well, I meant like the person I was there meeting with.
Oh,
like to pass out in front of Natasha. Fine. But to have this long and wonderful conversation, it was a great meeting. But
Sure,
I
she'd be
did
thinking,
once it
was it me?
Right. Like, or, because it went longer than it was supposed to. And so, but I just felt like I couldn't cut it off.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in that flow, you can't just say.
And so it really wasn't until the end. And I just had this moment when we were kind of wrapping things up and I'm like, I do not feel good. And then we got up. So she was leaving and I was like, okay, just hold on, like hold it together for 30 more seconds.
Low blood sugar. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Well, good job, you.
Escapism co-host style right there.
That's right.
What is our topic today? What are we trying to escape in the grander scheme of things?
Pregnancy-related divorce bans.
Okay. I didn't know such a thing existed.
Neither did I. I was actually researching something entirely different.
Okay.
And then it bled into this, and then this got me fired up because I'm like, what do you mean this exists? What do you mean I am pregnant and I'm in danger and I'm trying to flee a marriage and nope, not until your baby is born? Oh, that got me just boiling. So this one is infuriating. And anyway, what year are we in?
Well,
1900?
I mean,
maybe. We might be. May as well be.
So this goes a little bit along the lines for those who maybe haven't been listening as long as others. We did a child marriage / forced marriages episode recently. And so kind of related, I mean, similar in nature where it's like not a lot of choices here for typically women. And in this case, obviously women, but interesting. Go for it. Tell me more.
Okay, so this one's going to be less of a story, although there will be some
anecdotes.
Yeah, but more of bringing awareness to an issue that I didn't even realize was a significant problem in our country. And so it started out looking into homicide. You had mentioned this to me after reading an article that homicide was one of the leading causes of death in pregnant and postpartum women. And I'm like,
terrifying.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
That's what I started researching.
Okay.
And then led to the pregnancy-related divorce bans. Not that one is better or more significant than the other. It's just that it's just insane. Okay. So ready for you guys? You got your pen and your paper. Okay. Journalist mode. That's right. So women in the United States. Fun fact. Not so fun fact. I need a different word. What's not fun?
Fast fact. I say that sometimes.
Fast fact.
Because it's not fun nor
the opposite of fun.
It is the opposite of fun.
What's the opposite of fun? Drag fact?
Doomsday.
Doomsday fact? Okay. Women in the U.S. stand a greater chance at being murdered during pregnancy or soon after childbirth than from high blood pressure or hemorrhaging or sepsis, more commonly associated with maternal death.
It is bonkers.
I could not believe this. I've never heard this. I mean, you mentioned it and I was like, huh? This is a thing? Okay, let's go look.
Yeah.
And most of it statistically is a result of intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
So you can already see the setup of where this is going. All right. So in fact, in an analysis of 9,140 homicides of women ages 12 to 50 years old, researchers at the University of Chicago found that women who were pregnant or recently pregnant, which is defined as 1 year postpartum, up to 1 year postpartum, at the time of their death were 14% more likely to die from homicide at the hands of an intimate partner compared to women who were not pregnant.
Yeah. Wild.
I know. What is that? I mean, is that I don't want the stresses of becoming a parent, this other partner, the violent one?
Well, at least in the story that prompted me to share this with you, it was already a violent relationship.
Yeah, probably.
And then you add pregnancy
the stress
to it.
Of a baby.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, uncertainty, change, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So around the world, about 1 in 3 women experience intimate partner violence, like psychological violence, sexual, physical forms of abuse. All of those are included in that statistic. But in the U.S. specifically, we have higher rates of intimate partner violence than any other wealthy country. Mm-hmm. And the majority are committed using firearms.
Ugh, bad humans.
I'm going to come up with a word. It's not a fun fact. An effed up fact? All right. In the United States, over 150 women each year are murdered. This is not funny, Julie.
No, just that comment was funny.
An effed fact. Okay. Are murdered while they're pregnant or recently pregnant at the hands of the person who's supposed to love them, is helping them bring this life into the world. And for whatever reason, Black women are at a much higher risk than white or Hispanic women of pregnancy-associated homicide. More research found that in 2020, that homicide rate that year for pregnant or postpartum women was 5.23 deaths per 100,000 live births, which is really high. While the rate for non-pregnant and non-postpartum women was like 3 per 100,000 live births. So that means that women who are pregnant or postpartum had a 35% greater risk of homicide, 35% greater risk of being murdered at the hands of an intimate partner than their peers. And in 2018 and 2019, pregnant and postpartum women were at a 16% higher risk of homicide compared to their non-pregnant counterparts. So it's doubled, twofold jump in the risk associated with pregnancy during the first year of the COVID pandemic, which I guess it tracks people lost their minds. I mean, it impacted people's mental health in really significant ways, of which I don't even know if we're done seeing the consequences and ripple effects from that, right? Of the 189 pregnancy-associated homicides in 2020, 55% of victims were non-Hispanic Black women, and 45% were ages 24 years or younger. Among all these incidents, 81% involved firearms, and 55% occurred in the home. Their safe haven, not so safe haven.
No, not at all.
54% of victims were pregnant at the time of their death, whereas the remaining victims were, again, up to that 1 year postpartum. So when you think about the fact that most women in the United States do receive prenatal care of some sort, in fact, it's 76% begin prenatal care within the first trimester, 17% begin in their second trimester, and 7% receive very late to no prenatal care at all. There are a lot of opportunities for healthcare professionals to screen for this type of thing and connect, potential victims to support. And many do now that awareness is being brought to intimate partner violence. But my research on this issue, like I said, took me down a rabbit hole that really got under my skin, because it's one thing to be in that situation. It's another thing, as we know and we see here every day at One Heart, it takes a tremendous amount of strength and will and courage to leave that type of situation. And I think when you're pregnant, you're more protective of, you know what I mean? You've got another life growing inside of you. So that I think that's why this got to me so much, because every state in our country has its own laws, but there still are a handful of states where even if a pregnant victim does muster up that bravery to leave her abuser, if she's married to the abuser, the judge will not sign off on a divorce. So what kind of situation do you think that creates for her?
Well,
a safer one?
Right. No, I was going to say an
safer.
incredibly dangerous one. Yeah.
And that's really the focus of this episode. So Arkansas, Texas, Missouri, all have bans on finalizing divorce when the petitioner is pregnant. And these laws prevent judges from finalizing divorces. In Arizona, for instance, divorces are typically not granted while a spouse is pregnant, but there's no prohibition against doing so in state law.
Just out of precedence, they tend not to do it.
The reason they say it's that some of these states, they require a paternity test after the baby's born before determination of child custody. And they kind of want to handle child custody in the context of the divorce all at the same time instead of have it be a later thing. That's their
reasoning.
Rationale. Yeah.
Man, I just know a friend of mine who custody was the sole thing holding up the divorce.
Yeah.
Not with a baby, with 2 school-age children. But her ex found every little loophole and annoying method to prolong those custody disputes.
Just to get at her?
I would guess.
Okay. I just really want to stay married.
No.
It was,
well, maybe
I'm just going to make
did,
your life hell.
But
how dare you divorce me?
I just
I'm going to make you pay for it.
Yeah, I think it was just to be cruel.
Yeah. No shortage of those kind of people.
But I had no idea that until they had a custody agreement, that divorce would not be settled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and it just took forever.
And doing some more reading on this, it was like back in the 70s, they instituted a lot of these types of laws basically to make sure that men weren't deadbeat dads, that they were financially accountable for the children that they fathered.
So it had good intentions at the start?
It had good intentions, but they were not thinking about, because also back in the 70s.
You didn't talk as much about abuse.
Yeah.
Right.
There's stigma, you're less likely, this is normal. This is what I grew up with or whatever, In Missouri, the law says that a married couple who files for divorce must address the pregnancy status of the wife, as well as provide details on custody and child support arrangements as part of the divorce agreement also. It's believed that judges have taken this to mean that they cannot issue a final divorce decree until the pregnancy is completed. That's how they're interpreting it. And there are people trying to change the current law because of the danger it poses to victims of intimate partner violence. And this is essentially forcing women to stay with abusive partners or not have that court-ordered financial support and be living separately and often without necessary resources while they're waiting for the divorce. Arkansas and Texas delay finalizing divorce for very similar reasons. And in Arkansas, the question of paternity must also be resolved before the divorce can be finalized. Texas similarly bans divorce while pregnant, but the law does allow for temporary orders to be put in place for support and visitation of previous children.
Okay.
So, in one interview I read, several attorneys said that they were not aware of any divorces in their state being finalized before a child is born. But it does appear that protective orders to get away from DV while the divorce is pending are allowed.
Okay.
In some states.
Sure.
Yeah. But it surprises me. It's like, let's keep people tethered when there is a clear threat to someone's safety.
Right. Right.
Why? Would we do that? And how do you think it's going to work out? And you know what? It was not hard to find these statistics on homicide, our pregnancy-related homicides.
Right.
Come on, attorneys. Any of you. It's asinine. And it's dramatically increases the chances of an abuser having more control over the woman and a baby now after the baby is born. Think about that. I'm going to threaten to hurt the child or hold this child over you. You get that woman to stay under your control so much longer. It just doesn't make sense. It's completely backwards.
Yeah.
You look like you're going to say something.
Well, I just feel like, and if it's about like making sure you have the right dad, it's like a logistics thing that doesn't account for so many other things. You know what I mean?
No, it's not the full picture. It's
Right.
very close-minded, and it's endangering people.
How is it any different than not being married to begin with?
Right.
And not necessarily being confident that
Right.
the baby is the dad's.
Right.
Or the husband's, I should say.
Yeah. I can easily get a paternity test after the baby's born if I'm not married, just as easy as I can if I'm still married. Why?
Yeah. And then custody and all those things should still be a factor. Like, I feel like you could just tweak the laws and make it safer for the women.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems kind of silly, but
It
that's what we
seems
do
absurd.
sometimes.
What's even more interesting, term used very loosely, is that some of the support, if you will, that is said to be available to a woman in this situation in these states is that a temporary restraining order and or a protective order is allowed because it can prevent your spouse from calling you or contacting you, coming onto your property, threatening you, bothering you at work, sending you mail, taking away your children if you have custody, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But I've never heard of a protection order preventing anything. So they're encouraging women to do this.
Yeah.
And they're like, if that would have been my solution, I probably would have done that first.
Right. Well, you're just banking on the accused following the rules.
They violate that crap all the time.
Right.
All the time. So even better, you can simply separate from your spouse because it's easy, right? Since divorce is not allowed until a child is born. So even though you may be required to stay married in these states, you're not required to live with the abuser. So silver lining?
Little bit.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
But for many women, this really impacts younger women more prevalently because they can't afford to live on their own in a lot of circumstances. They're younger. I mean, it's very similar to our forced and childhood marriage situation. It's not really that different. You know, you think about how some of them expressed feeling like imprisoned and like property. Kind of like, what do you mean? I could enter into this contract pregnant, but I can't get out of it pregnant? How, that doesn't even make sense.
I agree. Yeah, that was the part for me that just blew my mind in that. Yeah.
And we're not even adding on right now that layer of the pregnant spouse in this situation could be underage. We're not even going there. But you know, and abuse is a shameful thing, like we were talking about before. It's difficult to admit to your support system, your people who love you, that this is going on. Not to mention that abuse tends to escalate when the status quo is challenged, when you know, decide to threaten or attempt to leave. I mean, that's really what made my long-term high school boyfriend erupt into violence, was me breaking away. Like, you know what? I've seen nothing but you for this last year. I'm going to go hang out with my friends tonight. Oh, mistake number one. Yeah. You know, mistake number two was going to see a concert that he didn't approve of. And he found me there, and that's when I got the shit beat out of me. So, yeah. And some a-holes in Arizona, these abusers, figured out that if you file for legal separation as a way to get around the divorce ban, they can just simply countersue you for divorce, which means then that there's no resolution until the baby's born.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like the guy you were just talking about, like loopholes, right?
Yes.
So, All right. So from what I could tell in my research, none of these ridiculous laws that prevent you from filing for divorce while pregnant, but so you can begin to at least work out child custody support situations for the soon-to-be-born child, as well as any existing children you guys may have. And it's best to do this through an attorney, which adds a good layer of protection.
Okay.
If you're going through that between you and the abuser. So starting that process as soon as possible would help increase the odds that the divorce will be final very soon after the birth of the baby. And, you know, hopefully if you can't afford an attorney, there are organizations that can help you based on income and that type of a thing. I also read that in Texas, there's a mandatory waiting period of 60 days before the divorce can be granted. But you can try to go through your attorney to have any mandatory waiting period waived. So like understanding these things, you can ask for them, especially if you have a restraining order against your spouse for violent behavior and fear for your safety.
That can potentially speed up the process. Okay.
Yep. So knowing your rights, knowing what's available, talking to someone who's, you know, you don't want a car accident attorney, personal injury attorney. You want someone who deals with this stuff.
But so the expense of that, too, is prohibitive for so many people. It's better than your death. Life. Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
I mean, so proponents of these laws claim that they're pro-child. One of the arguments is that if courts allowed it, then the pregnancy ended without a live birth and the child support would have to be recalculated, which means going through the process all over again.
I mean, we have computers to do the math. Like it just doesn't.
Is hard. It just means going through the process again. We don't care about your safety. We care about our work burden. And the other prevalent argument is paternity. Like you said earlier, getting the right person. I mean,
yeah, but
sometimes people have.
How does it change?
More partners. I know, but either way, you can't do that until the baby's born. So I don't understand what marriage has to do with that.
I don't either.
Yeah,
that's where I was coming from. Yeah.
I really don't understand it. These same proponents, though, say that restrictions on divorce don't require you to stay with your spouse.
Yeah.
Personal safety is imperative. Nothing in this restriction prevents a woman from doing that. So to me, you know, it sounds almost like we don't have to put responsibility on the abuser.
Right. Well, and on that note, you know, I think of when I've go to the dentist and even the dentist, you know, asks you to sign the forms regarding HIPAA. And like, if we're going to release information, who can we release it to? Well, of course, I always put my husband because I want him to know. But what if you had signed things that gave your spouse permission 3 years ago And that's what they have on record. And so you go to seek help somewhere or you go to the hospital for some reason.
That's a really good point.
Their name is on that documentation as being okay. And it's like, what if you're in one of these situations where it's not okay?
Right. So do they automatically, like if you're talking to them about now this abuse, do they go and say, hey, we need to revisit this paperwork?
Right.
I don't know.
If I'm not asked to redo the HIPAA stuff, I don't ask to do it. Now, I also have never been abused. So maybe if you're in that, maybe you are of the mindset to be like, if there's any way he can know about this, I need to change it. But I just think, we go about our days and sometimes it's well after the fact that you realize like, oh, that information is the official document for something and maybe it shouldn't be. And you don't ever think to ask to change it. And that's one spot really where I just wonder, like, again, a loophole that somebody could use to get information about you or find out where you are or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Oh, eek.
Well, knowledge is power. So if you've signed anything like that and this is going on, you go to your medical provider and just say, hey, can I revisit that? And then this supersedes everything else.
Well, in the protection, I mean, that's where if you had a protection order, the person should know, like, I can't go just because I know they're at the clinic doesn't mean I get to be there too. So there might be that, but I think, like, would the clinic know that there's a protection order? Probably not. So that's where I just
probably not because nobody's going to test that until you call law enforcement and say this person is still doing these things that this protection order says they can't do.
Yeah. It's supposed to be one of the best times of your life, right? If you want to be a mom.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. I can't. And even when you want to be a mom and everything else goes well, it's stressful.
It's still stressful.
And it's hard and you're sleep deprived and your hormones are all over the place.
Yeah,
and then you add a layer of
you could put that on a t-shirt.
What's that?
Hormones are a bitch.
There probably already is a t-shirt.
Probably somewhere. Well, then there's these things called no-fault divorces.
Yeah.
And great. I mean, meaning that the filing spouse doesn't need to show any wrongdoing on the part of the other person being filed against. In the state of South Dakota, 97.6% of couples end their marriage cite irreconcilable differences.
I mean, that's pretty...
No fault.
Yeah.
Just is what it is as grounds for divorce. And no faults are allowable in every state. But because it's being widely used as the official reason for so many divorces, there is a growing effort to eliminate no fault divorce in conservative states.
Okay.
In fact, in South Dakota, Representative Tony Randolph has introduced legislation every year since 2020. I didn't look this session to strike irreconcilable differences as grounds for divorce, all because of his personal faith that says one man plus one woman equals marriage and children until death do you part. That's all. No other reason than that. But if one of the spouses uses the other for a punching bag all the time,
right?
I think that formula should go out the damn window. So eliminating no-fault divorce would make it so much more dangerous and hopeless for a victim of DV to get herself out of that situation. Mm-hmm. It is asinine. And being required to prove fault it just makes it so much. You just want to walk away and get the hell out. No fault is the way to go. Mm. And then to have to prove that this person is a shitbag and at fault for something, it can be expensive. It can be emotionally arduous. It can just be horrific. Mm-hmm. Not to mention risking further harm or intimidation or retaliation while you're waiting for this court on high to tell you that they give you their blessing to divorce somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody should have to stay married to someone they don't want to be married to any longer, period. Full stop. They're just, period.
Yeah. I have it's hard for me because I come from, a lovely marriage. So it's hard for me a little bit to understand getting to that point, right? But practicing Catholic, not big on divorces in that faith either. However, from the get-go, I mean, years ago, I remember a priest just explaining, the divorce is the civil piece of it's the contract, basically.
Yeah.
I very much view my marriage as a sacrament. And so that to me is a different thing than just the marriage license. But that doesn't take into account abuse,
Right.
like there's...
I mean, if Jeremy started
Right.
beating on
like
you.
if when safety becomes an issue. And I will tell you, my friend who ended up getting divorced, who had the custody issues, I mean, she didn't want to be divorced. That was not the
goal.
I mean, that was not the goal. That's not how she wanted things to end by any means. But
you can't endure that. I mean,
exactly.
People have their breaking points.
Yeah.
And usually it's never going to get better without some type of major interference, whether that be legal, law enforcement, divorce, something.
Yeah. I will say I feel like I was in like a ladies' room once where I overheard somebody who had been divorced recently, and her comment to a friend that I overheard was basically, I think that it should take as much paperwork to get married as it does to get divorced. And then people would really consider it before they took that step. And,
unless
it
you're
was
drunk
kind
in
of
Vegas.
said like jokingly.
Yeah.
But it was half kidding because I'm sure, having gone through what she went through, clearly just by the tone in her voice, she meant it, you know? And I would say that too. I mean, we didn't date that long before we got married, but we still did a lot of prep work before that point. And I'm so glad we did, because when the time came to make it official, I knew I was ready to do that. Yeah. But I do think we tend to not take that bond as seriously as we should. And when you are in a relationship with somebody who's comes unhinged, like, now you have a much bigger problem, right?
But a marriage contract does not automatically equate to a bond, like you said.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're layered, but they're not
Correct.
the same thing.
Yeah. One is a legal agreement.
Yep.
For me, I view my marriage as a sacrament. And for that reason, it is sacred to us. And I hope nothing ever comes between that. But that's how seriously we took it. You know, we went into it very seriously. And my heart goes out to people who, I think lots of people go in with good intentions. I also think a lot of people go in not spending a lot of time thinking about the long-term marriage, and that they get stuck on like the wedding or kind of the immediate things that are coming up, the exciting things, the romance,
the exhilaration.
Yeah. And I guess we were a little bit older. I always say, like, I had dated a lot of like real jerks, not a lot. I shouldn't say that, but a couple who were real jerks. And I just thought, this guy is nothing like them. I just knew it.
Yeah.
Like, he would not do the things they did. And I still feel that way to this day. Like, he just
you would have seen some signs by now.
He doesn't have it in him.
Yeah.
But people can show a different side of themselves, for sure. And that's where,
even if that happens, or you just fall out of love and you're just not compatible, you grow in different directions, you should still be able to get a divorce and end that marriage contract if it's just not, you're just not vibing anymore. Mm-hmm. People do change. Or they go through, I remember, walking into the emergency department when Tim got shot. And I remember very vividly thinking, he might not be him anymore. Right. And we might not be we after this, right? Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we are just fine and stronger than ever, but it could have easily gone a different way. Mm-hmm. I mean, trauma and, horrific things that happen, tragic things that happen in people's lives can change personalities. Yeah. And like you hear about the death of a child or, a child abduction or something ruining marriages. Right. And
another case I know of, it was war, as a young man, husband went to war.
Oh, yeah.
Came home. I think there probably was already kind of a propensity for alcohol abuse. it got worse. Yeah. I mean, same thing. The wife, I don't think really ever thought they would end up divorced, but
it's not the goal.
Correct. But I just take it seriously before you go into it. Do what you can to prepare a little better. And if people just weren't abusers, like you said, to kind of kick things off, that would help a lot too.
Yeah.
Right? How much of it is just, you're just a jerk. Like, and then it's to a level that is,
I don't have statistics, but if I were to be a gambling person,
terrible.
Yeah.
Like, what is
get
wrong
away
with
it?
people?
Or it's just like, well, this is how my dad treated my mom, or, whatever. This is what was modeled for me.
Yeah,
Great,
I know
let's
some of
hear
those
that.
cases where I was not surprised that the younger generation were not very nice to their
sweet little
spouses.
mother-in-law. Okay, MIL. Little mill tangent. I took her to a doctor appointment yesterday. Get the staples out of her head so she doesn't look like little Bride of Frankenstein
anymore.
But she 3, 4, 5 times, same conversation about how she's just so impressed with how my kids have, the adults they've turned out to be, and loves how close we all are and all that stuff. And I'm like, yep. And every time I just said, I just did exact opposite my parents did. Everything they did, I did the opposite. And obviously, they're not going to turn out to be a raging mess like I had. So, but here's some of these unintended consequences. Like, I know that when people are bringing forward this type of legislation, I mean, they have good intentions. They want, it's about the kids, it's about family, regardless of my personal feelings about it. I know they're not doing it to try to endanger people.
Yeah.
But it is very, very much feared that should these no-fault divorces go away, victims might be totally discouraged from seeking divorce at all, and they're afraid suicide rates would increase. To me, that's almost as bad as arranged marriages where the woman has no say. Like, this is your only out, is to take your own life. And in most cases of DV, it's the woman who is the victim. Changing these laws would once again take away her power of voice and choice and definitely send us in the wrong direction. And then opponents of eliminating no-fault divorces say that due to the increased burden of proving fault, it draws it out longer, it delays the divorcing parties from accessing child support and other custody arrangements while that's going on, and it impacts the children as well.
Yeah.
Like, you need to factor that in there. And speaking of suicide, the National Bureau of Economic Research did a study in 2003 and concluded that there was a significant reduction in the number of women completing suicide following the introduction of no-fault divorce.
Weird.
Because now they had an easy way out. They didn't have to go find evidence, and that burden of proof wasn't on them. In fact, the states that passed no-fault divorce laws saw total female suicide decline by around 20%. That's not nothing.
It is not nothing.
Yeah.
No.
The research also found a large decline in domestic violence for both men and women following the adoption of no-fault divorce. So this trend is holding steady. And finally, the study suggests that no-fault divorce, that is such a mouthful, for some reason, led to a decline in women murdered by their partners. So tying it all back to what we started the conversation on. So my PSA for the day, what was Julie's?
I don't even remember.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Take it seriously before you get married.
Take it seriously. Try to find out who you're really getting together with before you take that walk down the aisle.
My PSA is if you're experiencing domestic violence, you're seeking support, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233, or you can text the word START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. 88788. So further research, I did find one story that I thought was very demonstrative of everything that we've talked about. So I wanted to see, could we it's one thing listening to stats. It's another thing like when you put it in a story form. So there was a journalist, Katia Riddle, who did a story for NPR in May of 2024, so pretty recently.
Oh, wow.
About a woman named Destiny who lived in Missouri, which is one of these states we're talking about. And she was pregnant, seeking a divorce. She was pregnant with her third child. And when her husband would yell at her and call her names, her son started mimicking the dad's behavior and treating her the same way, just like we talked about. And that was her turning point. You see your child mimicking this behavior, game over. She made her mind up right there to leave him. But when she went to an attorney to file for divorce, she was told, sorry, got to wait till the baby's born. And so that, or this is how they say it, until the baby's born or you are otherwise no longer pregnant. So what do you think that's driving women to do?
Abort.
End the pregnancy, yeah. So opponents of this law in Missouri are now arguing that the law has been weaponized against DV victims and sometimes forces women into abortion because they so desperately need a way to escape the abuse. And that should never be a factor, but we're forcing people into that.
Yep.
Another survivor of DV in this NPR piece talked about her experience with the legal system when she tried to end her marriage. She'd been holding on to the idea of filing for divorce as like a life raft for her and her child. And when she finally decided to pursue it, she says her lawyer told her it wasn't possible due to her pregnancy. Quote, I felt absolutely defeated in that moment, she said. And she was forced to return to an abusive marriage to wait out the pregnancy. She says she slept on a tile floor in the basement the night before she gave birth because it was the only room in the house where there was a lock.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Eek.
DV advocates say that when a woman finally makes a decision to leave, like we said earlier at the top of the episode, it's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
We need to empower them to be able to carry out that decision and legally leave the abuser before they end up murdered. And through our network, we've sheltered women who were in this situation in the past when they're at serious risk of potentially being murdered too. Back to Destiny, though, in that NPR piece, it took 3 months after the baby was born to leave her husband. And, she's still overwhelmed by like the partial custody agreement and all the things. But she says her overwhelming feeling, like the overriding feeling, is that of being free. State of Missouri could have helped her get that sooner. And she's proud. She's proud of herself. She's proud of the fact that she saved herself and her children, even without support of the state of Missouri. So good job, Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's just, there were so many stories, but I didn't want to, it was already a downer.
I was going to say, can we lighten things up now?
We can lighten things up by, I will just shut up and not talk anymore.
No, it's an important topic. It's an important topic. And I think it is. The day that I read the article I saw, I believe that woman was in Texas. It was truly heartbreaking. And the statistics, which you shared, a lot of them or similar ones, are nuts. Like, I always say, what is wrong with people? But I do ask that minimum once a day.
Daily, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about the voice today, too. I think I recorded an episode with somebody else before this. And so I talked for like 90 minutes. So I feel like I'm really scratchy and
oh, no.
I sound hoarse to me in my head. Oh, maybe it's my head.
Maybe it's your headphones,
it's
like distorting.
Brain. I don't sound distorted and scratchy
I don't
to
think
you?
so.
Oh, okay. I feel like I do. It's weird.
Well, escape artists out there, tell us what you think. Sometimes scratchy voice can be sexy, Charity.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
There's a whole Friends episode where she got a cold, and so her voice was really low and kind of raspy, and she like Phoebe. Phoebe, one of my favorite characters.
I will say,
she loved it.
Sick in college, I'm a soprano, and so being able to like hit some of those low notes, that was kind of fun because I cannot do that on a regular basis.
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend who you think might like it too. We do this kind of in our freebie time, not really free. We don't really have free time, but we try to
wedge
squeeze
it
this in.
We get it handled, yeah.
Yep, in hopes of one day providing operational support for our nonprofit, One Heart, where I cannot talk today. So you have the scratchy voice
contagious.
and I
Okay.
have just problems getting the words out. Our mission here is empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability.
Yeah, true podcast for a cause, so you can really feel good about spreading the word. And you guys are spreading the word. I mean, we're seeing numbers go up. We're seeing listeners pop in from different states and areas that we didn't realize we had a reach in. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah. So I don't know how you're doing it, but please continue. If you're rating, reviewing, wherever you listen to your podcast, subscribe really helps other people like find us. When like I just got exposed to one, and it was because of Holly's episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to do with like internet crimes against children type of thing. And I was like, oh, look at this. I didn't know this podcast existed. So because your phone's listening to you all the time and it heard me talk about this, it just kind of pops up. So please talk about the escape pod. More listeners for us will equal more ad revenue. And I know everyone hates sitting through the ads, but I'm telling you, I've found some amazing products and vendors and different things in my personal life through listening to podcasts. So I most of the time will listen to all the way through the commercials on the podcasts that I follow. You can check us out on our website at escapepod.live. You can link out to our socials for those of you social media-ites out there. Have fun. More power to you.
I was going to say,
not my thing.
You're not one of them.
I'm not one of them. But you will get to engage with Julie and Cara Beth that way, and they are super fun. You can reach out at justbecause@escapepod.live. If you have an idea for an episode topic, or you want to say, yeah, Charity, I do really like the voice, whatever you did, do it again. Or share your escape story with us at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
Unfortunately, there's probably too many stories about people who have tried to end relationships.
Yeah.
And couldn't because
of
laws.
Let us know. I mean, let us know if this has impacted you. You know, we would love to be able to read your story on a future episode. And, you know, it's one thing reading about someone on the internet, but like, hey, this person took the time to write in to help educate other people that this is possible. Here's how I did it, or here's how my hands were tied and I needed to move states, or whatever the situation was. We hope you're still alive and you can tell us how that went. Yeah.
Well, we are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod, but remember, trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And get your brains in check, because we're not escaping to anything. I just realized. We have no words. We have scratchy voices. We are falling apart today. So I'm escaping to, God, we were talking about pregnant all episode. If I'm pregnant, I'm going to lose my mind. Because I'm like, do you know what I'm craving? I'm craving tater tots. Do you know I haven't had tater tots.
Not what I expected you to say.
That's what I'm escaping to.
Wow.
My husband's out of town. I'm going to go bake some freaking tater tots.
That took a turn.
Oh, it just cut me off. She's cutting the mic. I can see her finger going towards the button right now.
Nope, I'm not. That is staying in. I have creative control, and I will use it.
Oh, God, help me.
I don't know what I'm escaping to.
Probably sleep. You still need some after yesterday.
I really do need some sleep. So
Julie was out peddling Gravitate yesterday at a job fair.
Yes, it went very well.
Went really
I'm glad
well.
We went.
Yeah, I was like watching the numbers go up and stuff, so it was really exciting. And it's going to be fun.
It was good, but anybody, I always hear from people. I work with a lot of introverts, and I am not. I am an extrovert.
Yes.
However, 7-ish hours, roughly, almost.
It still takes a toll.
Oh. Yeah. I'm spent. So, yes, hopefully I will get a little break. Ooh, I do have a fun one, though.
What?
It is not sleep, but I will sleep well afterwards. Our little school does a school family dance once a year.
Aww.
It is the most popular event we host, and it's tomorrow night.
Aww,
so
fun.
The kids and families, people just love it. It's wild and chaotic and crazy.
Which kid's school?
The younger one.
Okay.
Yeah, 10-year-old. He's a 4th grader. So we get 2 more of these, and I'm just like, oh, I'm glad it's not our last one. Next year I might cry when it's over.
Well, that's over, and then you'll have a high schooler on top of it. So.
Oh, well, yeah. We're not going to talk about that.
I hope we find our clinician before then.
Yes.
By the way, if any of you listeners in the local area would like to come be the One Heart clinician, we are looking for one. Our
licensed therapist,
unfortunately, is leaving us, and we're very sad about that. And yes, so pass the word.
It's on gravitate.work.
That's right.
That's where it's posted.
Go check it out.
Okay, for real this time.
Stay resilient.
We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
and don't be like Charity.
Keep laughing, everybody. Bye.